Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 5 of What's in the Bag. So episode 1 we did dice, episode 2 we did measuring, episode 3 we did scoring, episode 4 we did rules. Today's episode is miscellaneous stuff, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Emma.
I'm Mike, and this is my tournament bag.
So as I just said, today we're talking about miscellaneous things that also live in the tournament bag.
So there's a few weird and wonderful things that you can obviously improve your own experience with at tournaments. These are some that over the years sort of have moved in and out of the bag. These are the ones that are in here at the moment. So I'm going to start with a pretty standard one, a name tag.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going anywhere outside of your local community, these are really useful.
Now these are useful, I think, for a couple of different reasons. So I hate wearing a name badge. It's relatively easy for me because any room that I go into for a gaming event, I'm going to be one of the very few women in the room. So as far as people knowing who I am, particularly if we're running an event, everybody knows that I'm the chick up the front in the bright orange shirt. So that's really easy. I don't need to wear a name badge, which is great because I do hate them. But I think that it's really great for players to be wearing them because the difficulty with there can be 120 players in the room. What's everyone called? Chances are if you shout out Ben or Daniel or Mike, you're going to get out of the room, look up. But always best not to guess. And with the kind of, not invention of, but, with the more common use of things like Down Under pairings or Best Coast pairings, you've got on your phone who you're playing. Yeah. But where I really love these is when it comes to painting judging.
Yeah, so, this is another one that we've done for another player here in who's come to our events before.
Yeah.
Putting that in front of your name.
In front of your army.
Means that if there's any sort of beauty parade or anything like that, then it's very easy to know who you're voting for. Yeah,
and you need something. So quite often at events, I'm going around saying to people, this is a beautiful army. Shall we guess who painted it?
Yeah, and you'll see scraps of paper.
Yeah, that's it. The back of a lunch bag that's got someone's name scribbled on it, or a back of a score sheet that's got someone's name scribbled on it. So just having that you can put next to your display board or next to your army, wherever you're displaying it, really, really useful. And again, you doubles up so you can wear it to identify yourself. Make sure you take it off before you go to Coles and find everyone in Coles is going, hey, Mike, how you going? But yeah, it doubles up so you can do it to identify who's painting whose.
Yes. The next thing, I'm going to call these repair tools. There are 2 of them. Mm-hmm. The first, super glue. The second is Bluetack.
Beautiful.
Now, Bluetack, I don't know what it's called elsewhere in the world. It's that sort of poster sticky stuff that it's commonly used to put posters and things up on walls. This is a stopgap for me if I break a model and I don't just want to whack a dot of super glue on it to fix it. If it's a complex damage or flying stands is another one. I don't like using super glue. Any clear plastic parts, I'll put a massive lump of Bluetack on it and wedge it back together and then deal with it when I get home.
So with that, you don't pack files, you don't pack a knife, you don't pack
no clippers,
any of that stuff. So anything that gets damaged on the way to an event or at an event is kind of bodged together. Yeah. It's a Band-Aid solution, and then it gets fixed properly after the event.
Yeah, I know plenty of people who bring full toolkits, including drills, drill bit, pins, all those other bits and pieces. The problem I have with those is I don't want to spend a bunch of time with a bunch of other people around making a lot of noise and me having to
make a mistake.
Yeah. So super glue is a great one if you have metal models or if you snap an arm off or something. You can put a dot of super glue on it, and then you can be safe in the knowledge that you can re-break it when you get home, pin it and fix it properly. Mm-hmm. If it's something that you can't super glue on the spot, this lets me instantly make sure I don't lose the pieces.
Yeah.
I had a Necron Cryptek breaky staff, and instead of chucking it in the bag or in my pocket, I got a big dollop of Bluetack, put it on his base, stuck his staff across the base, and went, cool, now I'm not going to lose that piece. Mm-hmm. So this is my catch-all solution for a damaged product. This is my, I can make that work.
Yeah.
So I definitely would suggest both of these. Normally with these, I try and put them in a Ziploc bag, particularly the super glue.
Yes.
Because the last thing you want to have is chucking it in a bag loose and then having the bag squeezed or stepped on or anything like that, and having that super glue end up all through your bag and ruining books and other expensive things.
The last thing I want to happen is somebody doing that on one of our neoprene mats.
Yes, and that has happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's one of the reasons I'm more and more of late sticking with Bluetack, because it removes that risk. But if you are going to bring super glue, a hard container for it, or at the very least in a Ziploc bag to protect it. The last thing that I have in here from my tournaments is this. Now, I don't know what other parts of the world call it. In Australia, we call it a stubby holder. I've heard some of our American colleagues call it a cooler.
Yeah.
So it fits a standard size bottle or can. Depending on where you are in the world in regards to what the temperature's like. I've played not outdoor tournaments, but outside in a tent. It's a great one just to keep your drink cold.
Now, do you know why I like them? It's not necessarily about keeping your drinks cold, because bless their cotton socks, most of our players get through their drinks before they're likely to go warm. The reason that I like them is because they actually stop the moisture. So you're not going to get wet spots on anything on the table, which means your neoprene mat isn't going to get wet. You're not going to have little, drops of water on. So we have some vinyl battle scapes that we use for events as well. You're not likely to get damage to your books or damage to anything like that. So something like this, again, we have these for like $4 at events, but they're not only good for making sure that your drink stays cool or that you don't end up with really cold fingers if you're drinking in winter.
Wet hands.
Or wet hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, it also protects the table and protects everything that's on the table as well. So I think that that's really valuable to take along as well.
Yeah. Now,
also looks much better on stream if people have got this, or when I'm taking photos, to have something like this rather than today's event is brought to you by this particular beer.
Yep.
So I definitely appreciate it when players use these.
Now we've got a few other bits and pieces across the years where we've produced items that could potentially be useful at tournaments. We've got different sort of we've got keychain bottle openers, for example. A lot of the places that serve alcohol with the responsible consumption rules, they have to open it for you, so that's not necessarily going to be useful, but if you've got a BYO event, it could be. We've also got multi-tools that have been quite useful. They're credit card size. A lot of the time they'll have little sort of sharp edges for popping holes in super glue if you need to, or they do have a 2 and 3 inch measure on them as well a lot of the time. And then there's obviously a whole raft of sort of extra stuff that you can bring, different tokens, markers, templates.
Can I add some of my must-have in the bag? Painkillers.
Yes, that is a very good one.
You've got anti-inflammatories and something like paracetamol. So those two things, I think...
Or whatever your regional equivalent is.
Well, no, ibuprofen and paracetamol are the...
Oh, not in America, it's not.
Well, it is. Paracetamol is the name of the drug. It's just labelled as Advil or as opposed to Panadol. So anyway, doesn't matter. Painkillers, definitely worth packing. Same with packing some money, making sure you've got just a stash of cash as an emergency.
Oh, look, $5, $10, something up your sleeve, yeah.
Take with you. What else do we say?
I'm going to use a big one. Deodorant.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's really common that we have a can of deodorant sat at the tournament organiser's desk for
Generally
players.
Too. We have a women's deodorant and a men's deodorant. And my favourite saying I stole from a 1990s TV commercial for sun cream, and it was apply yourself to reapply.
Yep.
And I think that, definitely, that's my motto for events. Apply yourself to reapply. Just keep.
If you don't want to put it in your bag, and I don't keep it in the bag, I keep it in the car.
Or on the TO table.
Yep. And that's partly because I don't want a can in here like damaging books and other bits and pieces.
I quite like the ones with the twist lid.
Yep.
So, you can just... But I did have one that was a twist lid can of spray deodorant in my camera bag that I didn't twist, and it sprayed through my whole camera bag. And now every time I open it...
But yeah, you definitely want to have deodorant available to you, particularly in the summer months. I mean, as soon as you put a bunch of warm bodies in a room, you're going to need it anyway. But when it's 45 degrees,
even with air conditioning
Celsius,
and drinks,
you definitely want to have deodorant on hand.
Now, if your TO does have a can of deodorant, I always think it's just use that one, because if everyone's spraying the same deodorant, you've got a bit less of the, clashing of the aromas. Anything else?
Look, I think there's probably, depending on your own sort of personal situation, things like Band-Aids can be useful if you get sore feet and you're going to have your shoes rubbing on your feet. might also be useful to chuck a couple of those in there. If you are going to bring a knife,
definitely bring
then
Band-Aids.
bring a couple of Band-Aids, because the amount of times you'll see someone put a scalpel blade into their thumb or forefinger, it's going to happen. So having a couple of those up your sleeve as well is really useful.
And that's one of the reasons that we also suggest not to use scalpels at events, because that's not a time to be distracted particularly because most gamers want to use a brand new sharp scalpel knife for anything they're doing.
Yep.
Doing that in a busy environment where you could get bumped, or you've had a couple to drink, or
use this
Bluetack. Honestly, no one's ever cut their thumb off using Bluetack.
No.
That I know of. So definitely that. I think with the shoes, it's something to think about as well. Not that you're going to put those in your bag, but...
No, we've got a bunch of tips, though, in the Tabletop Tournament Prep Guide that covers some of this sort of stuff, including food and drinks and that sort of stuff to think about. But in terms of what comes in the bag, the last thing I would suggest is like some sort of muesli bar or snack bar.
And some water.
And a bottle of water. I don't know of any venue that would stop you bringing those two in. Just particularly, I've got friends who are diabetic, so they will often have those sorts of things in their bags anyway. But I've been to a tournament where they had those, and I found myself wishing I did.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Ever since then, I've kind of
kept
kept
sugar
them.
crash.
Yeah.
I think at a lot of tournaments, people don't necessarily eat or drink particularly well.
No.
And a lot of players are up until 3 a.m. painting their armies, and then they're leaving for an event. Our events, we have people who start arriving at 6:30 to help us set up.
Yeah.
And when you've got drive time in there as well, people are sometimes operating on 2-3 hours sleep. So, this event is brought to you by Red Bull and coffee.
Yeah.
So I think that just having something to kind of maintain your sugar levels to try and avoid those massive crashes is really useful as well.
Yeah, look, and by the time you get to the sort of second last or the last game of the day, that can easily happen.
All crashing.
And as soon as that happens, your concentration falls, and at that point, you're going to not play as well. And if you're in a contention for winning, and then you lose as a result of missing something because you're tired and not paying attention, that can be a really bitter pill to swallow. So
and we want people to be safe. So we really don't advocate people only getting 2 hours sleep before coming to an event.
No,
and then
but that's
playing for 10 hours and then driving potentially an hour
and
home.
I'm as guilty of doing that as anyone.
Oh, I know. That's why I mention it.
But yeah, having like a muesli bar or something little that can just kind of, you can snack on throughout the day, trail mixes and those sorts of things.
Protein balls, lots of water.
And then a bottle of water with you. Having access to those throughout the day to sort of intermix with other drinks and other meals will probably help you maintain your concentration throughout the day. Mm-hmm. But other than that, that's what's been in my tournament bag. We hope you've enjoyed this 5-part series.
Yeah, hopefully for people who are potentially new to coming to tournaments or events, this may give you a hint for some things that you could think about packing, or as I said before, maybe it could give you some hints for, we're coming up to Christmas, maybe some things you can suggest to loved ones that they can get for you for this hobby. And I know as a loved one of somebody of, my husband and my son both play, and I often think I'm quite lucky with my son because my husband plays, but it's been quite tricky to go, well, what do I get him?
Yeah. And while buying miniatures and box sets are nice, it's also often very hard and a very personal thing for some players. So having some of these sorts of more generic, useful items for play, then maybe not as exciting, but they're still useful as stocking stuffers because a lot of them aren't expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you have any other suggestions that you think we've missed that belong in a tournament bag, we'd love to hear from you. You can find links to the website, our Facebook page, and all the other social medias down in the comments. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we hope you've enjoyed the series, and we'll see you again soon.
Let us know if there's any other series you'd like to see us cover for, some of the intro to gaming, intro to tournaments that we can help with.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, everyone.